Okay, good morning, everybody. I was doing my prayer time. It's early now. It's Saturday at 5, a little after 5 a.m. I got up late actually, which 4:30 is late. I prefer getting up at 3:30. So when I woke up at 4:30, I thought, oh, I'm behind. But I'm in prayer time, and I thought, let me do this because I'm making now a video every day for the last 3 days. And so I thought, should I do it or not? And I went to get the phone. It normally takes 20 minutes I shut my phone off at night. I keep it off all night, and in the morning I'll turn it on. And I accidentally left it on, so I didn't have to wait 20 minutes. So I just thought a few minutes ago, let me do this. Some of the recent videos are new to a lot of our new friends, but they're not new to people that have been friends of mine for years. So these are periods of time that I do these types of things. So this will be one of those. I don't think it's going to be a teaching video, but sometimes I turn it into that. But for now, it's just going to be something that I might title this The Hit. When I have a lot of friends in the street that are good friends. And last week, I saw a bunch of them. And one of my good friends, there's only a few friends that will text me that are, regularly in touch with me because I don't talk on the phone. But there's just a few, and I made it a point, if they'll ever text me, sometimes trouble happens, And so those are the few that are like on my phone that text back and forth. And I used to have the authorities send me messages on my phone. And it upset me because it was like, from people that are cops or whatever. And I didn't like that. So when I saw my friend the other day, I had some good time talking to him. But he had mentioned a lot of my friends live in homeless camps for many, many years. In these last few years, the city has been trying to deal with that situation. So what they do is they tear down a lot of the brush, trees, areas where I walk. They kind of get rid of like all those trees. People can't camp. So it's been a big thing in our community. Citizens putting pressure on the cops. The cops can't do a whole lot they can't solve the homeless issue. But the citizens are like, why don't the cops do their jobs? And so this is go back and forth for years. So I saw one of my friends, I won't give names, he'll know it's him when he watches this, but he said, John, at the camp he was at for about a year, which they finally had to leave just a few days ago. He might not know why these people were there, so this might benefit my friend. But he said, one night, being at that camp, areas where I hang out, he said, I noticed in the trees, it looked like there was people, like heads of people when the wind was blowing. And at first he said, I wasn't sure if I was seeing things. He said, but then he went and checked it out, got closer, and there were 9 military grade SWAT team guys that were there. And they were there for months after he realized they were there. And they were looking at his area, which he's fine because he's left a lot of his past life, but he happened to be homeless on the street with a girlfriend that was a friend of mine. And that's how they live. You got nowhere to live, you got to find a place to set up like a camp. And then one of my other friends showed up, which we're all mutual friends. And my other friend said, look, there's about 9 guys that are like a SWAT team of guys. They're dressed like that way in camouflage. And they're sitting, maybe 100 yards, and they're out there every night. And my other friend, you've seen these guys on video, he didn't believe it. Like he said, okay, where they're at. Because one of my friends telling me, I know he's, oh, yeah, you, where? I'll go see him right now. So the other guy goes, he comes back, he says, they're there. He says, oh, I told you, they're just sitting there. And he said, why are they there? I said, I don't know. Look, I've been in this type of engagement for years. And the DA, the cops, the chief, they all know that these are my friends. And they all know that I regularly see them. But this last year, I haven't seen them as much. And it would be very easy if there was something like an area that's corrupt and they said, you know, we're going to have to, you know, kill somebody. Them, the corrupt authorities, we're going to have to take somebody out because, you know, he's a problem to us. Now, these things happen in national, our government has done these things to other governments. There's a history of these types of things, which happen on a local government scale and national scale. Now, these things wouldn't happen openly where they'd report it in the paper. Oh, yes, our local officials went and killed somebody. So it's possible why a group of, like, you know, a SWAT team group would be there for months on end waiting for somebody to show up. And if that person showed up, all that SWAT team would have to do to justify a killing would be, here's the person we were waiting to just show up and visit, but because it's out in the woods, but it's right not too far from here, it's in the city limits, they could just say, look, we did a raid on a known ex-gang member, and we thought there might be some illegal activity out there. And during the raid, obviously, there were 2 or 1 person killed. That would be a very easy way to justify a corrupt way to kill somebody that was speaking out against corruption. So to my 2 friends, and you know who you are, and you might be wondering why that it was a team of 9, SWAT team that were there for months. They might still be there. And they were just watching, and they wouldn't be there for months just to watch somebody's camp for no reason. And so I wanted to just say that because I don't think my friends might be aware that might be one of the reasons they're there. So if I just showed up one day to visit out of the blue, it's in the field, and that group of people could say, let's make the raid now. For whatever reason, they said they had to raid the camp. And, you know, 1 or 2 people were shot in the raid, and the local media, meaning they would be killing us. And look, the local media would be, oh, what happened? Oh, we did a raid, and there was some possible drug activity, and there's a known gang person. And, this other person, who is it? Oh, some guy by the name of John. He got shot in the raid. That would be closed so quickly. And, you know, the way our local media covers things, they would be praising the DA for doing such a great job. And you say, well, that's out of... Look, if you looked at some of the things I spoke about the last few days, which are well-documented things, not just by me, but by other people. So I figured, let me make that note, just so my friends would be aware. Okay? So it's not like a note to say, oh, they're going to get me. Look, they've been trying to get me for a long time. It's just that it can't be real obvious, you know. So that would be an easy way to do that. If it's that, it might be that. I can say that's exactly what's happening right with that scenario. But it was strange, and that my friend told me that before. Why there would be some type of a local, you know, police SWAT team for months on end, just right there. Because you're not doing it just to scope out, some homeless camp. There's obviously a reason that you'd be doing that. So I just want to do that as the update, that would also, give some people an idea of the environment that's been taking place now for a lot of years down here. This is nothing new for me. There are seasons of, the way things happen, okay? And this might also benefit my two friends. And it just so happens that that particular one they're camping out is one of the few that has regular contact with me. Because I made it a point to, just as few friends that I have on my phone, because they're closer friends than the other ones. And so if they ever need to text me, they know we text John. And so the local authorities who've been tapping my phone for many years, you say you're imagining that. Listen, I remember, I can give you so many stories. I used to have to shut my phone off and keep it off, even when I was out, because they follow me on the phone. The local authorities had my phone followed for years. And I said, look, and there's many very plain cases I can give you, and I gave them before. This one is one I knew for sure. There was a friend of mine by the name of Shrek, and his ex-girlfriend by the name of Tammy, two good friends. But Shrek got in some trouble a few years back, and he had to go to Houston to show up for probation. It was like he was going to sell a joint, a pot to some undercover cop or whatever it was, and it was like a setup thing, not a big thing, but so then, I got to go to Houston now, John, for probation. And Tammy, sweet Tammy, was crying. She's a friend of mine too. So, one day they just needed to get a ride to the bus, or there was a Christian friend that was in a paint store, that owned a paint store, and it was like Benjamin Paint Store off of Staples, way downtown, a street way downtown, and it was an establishment I've never been to, which was a local paint store that they needed a ride. Can you give us a ride, John? I gave Shrek a ride the other day, by the way, to this paint store, because this nice Christian brother we met, he's going to buy our bus ticket, because we got to go up to Houston to check in for probation. So nice, that was all legitimate. But the part that was interesting, I'd never been ever in my life to that paint store, which is way downtown, fairly close to City Hall. So what I did was simply park the car right there on the side street by the paint store, which I've never been in. And I went in with Shrek, but Tammy stayed in the car. So me and Shrek were in there for, 20 minutes, and he met the Christian brother, okay, here, Shrek, I'm going to buy your ticket, which was all legitimate. I pay for the bus ticket for you to go to Houston. So when we come out of this paint store, I know as soon as we walked out, I had my phone on me and there was a cop actually in the middle of the street, like confused, like looking, like where is somebody? And then I realized, because he's not that it was illegal, but he's in the middle of the street, sort of like, do I make a left? Do I make a right? Where's John with his phone that I just tracked to this place? Thinking I'm in some club, possibly drinking in that area of town, which I was not. So now when I got out, I thought that looked suspicious, because he's just waiting for somebody. And he was confused because he tracked my phone that day. You see? So then when we got in the car, Tammy, who knew this officer, is friends with this particular officer, Tammy told me, oh, that was so and so, officer that everybody knew, that they knew, because they like rented from him, a little property over here. And she said, oh, that was so and so. And look, I just said, are you sure, Tammy, when we got in the car? She said, oh, yeah, he waved, he waved at me because he knows them. So that's just one example. They just traced the phone. Now, I remember saying, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I was very upset when I used, you can't be doing that crap. So this is not new here. This is not new. They're out of boundaries for years out here. So I just figured I'd give you that little insight, all right? The local issue I dealt with, which was these update social justice issues, I went to a couple of those websites that I had mentioned. John Medina, who was arrested, which he had that that website called Corpus Christi News Now. Then an older site that I used to get the paper. There was a publisher out of Robstown, Texas, for many years. Homer. Oh, I forget Homer's last name now. But he did like a social justice paper dealing with local corruption. And at the firehouse, I am one of the captains that liked to read that. Oh, for 30 years, he was publishing that. It was called the El Defensor. And one of the captains, Al Lopez, became the chief eventually. We'd get in at work, he had the El Defensor. So it was like a political local newspaper in Spanish that exposed corruption. Well, he also has his El Defensor online news magazine, which is in Spanish. This John Medina has a Corpus Christi News Now, which is English. And then Eric Tunches has Corpus Christi Chronica. And these are just 3 local people from the area for years. And they do this like exposing corruption thing. But I really did not read in depth any of their news magazines in depth for years. So I went back on the Corpus Christi News Now, and it looks like they were exposing a criminal sex ring in this local area. And now when I first saw a comment or two, like when they arrested John Medina on the arson thing, some of the comments on his page were they were exposing a criminal sex pedophile ring. Now, in our national thing going on now, some of these, like accusations, have been taking place in a national level that I thought some of it might be conspiratorial. Lin Wood is a very famous, prominent Texas attorney. And when I saw Lin Wood on some of the sites I'm on, some of the sites that got banned that hopefully are going to get restored soon, which is Parler, I looked at Lin Wood's stuff and I thought, and I kind of friended him on Twitter, followed him on Telegram. Not that I believe everything. I think maybe people were manipulating Lin Wood, and I felt like maybe he's going through some, mental difficulty. Because some of the conspiracy stuff, QAnon and all this, some of it is, and I think Lin's a Christian, and I tried to look at that, and I think people might be manipulating him, but there might be some truth to some of the accusations. So in our country, to me, there's some legitimate, real concern and truth about, I don't even want to say it, they ban you from there was some fraud that took place in our recent presidential election. Now, and I'm a news person, and there were some irregularities that were legitimate things that have real concern. And so our media atmosphere is, not only do they want people not to question legitimate concerns, but they want you also to accept their narrative. I saw one homeless friend a few weeks ago, and I discussed a little bit about it to him. I said, there's enough that we saw that, just me as a watcher of I'm politically, astute, and some of the way that there are down ballots, very rarely do you have a presidential election where, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, that he loses at the top of the ticket, and then down ballot, his party wins. That's a very strange anomaly, meaning many of these votes supposedly were for Mr. Biden, who I pray for now, because I'm obedient to pray for the president. And I pray now for Mr. Biden and that person and his family. But if Mr. Biden won by 80 million votes, it's possible. And Trump had, 74 million? But then down ballot, Republicans actually did much better than was predicted. So that's an anomaly that normally does not happen. And the amount of minority votes that Mr. Trump got. Historically, Mr. Trump got more minority votes, even in our border regions of South Texas, than any other Republican candidate ever. Okay? So Mr. Trump got more votes, and also in Florida, more minority votes than any other Republican in history. Not only that, but Mr. Biden got less minority votes in support of black minority and other minority. Mr. Biden got less in certain key areas than Hillary Clinton got when she lost. So now these are anomalies that you look at and say, that's questionable. That's questionable because the Republican candidate got more minority support ever than any other Republican, which is a key base for Democrats. So now these are things you look at. These are not conspiratorial things you look at. These are things like politically people look at. So there were indeed questions. But I was telling one of my friends I ran into, he said, and he's, they're smart, my friend. I said, it's a strange thing because it's sort of like if somebody stole $10 from you or me, and you said, hey, that's fraud, you stole $10. Okay, but then over time, they got away with the theft of the 10. Okay, you got it. All right, you got it. And then they want you to come back and not only be happy with the theft, but they want you to confess that it was not theft. And it's a strange thing because people in a free society should always have the right to question anything. And the way the media environment is at this season is, okay, well, a certain thing was done, a certain thing was accomplished. A very large 3/4 of Republicans believe there was fraud. So you have a very large percentage of 75 million people who have legitimate questions. That's a very large percentage of people in any election to have that many that have questions. And they're not all questions that came up irrationally. There are some legitimate things that you can question in this. But now the media narrative is not only, if you will, did we steal the $10? We're not happy until you admit to us we did not steal the $10. That's now what's going on. What's done is done. We understand, okay, we move on as a country, all these things. But now they're out saying, now our next goal, instead of moving on, let's see what's going to happen. Mr. Biden's making some decisions that some people don't like to certainly. No, now their narrative is we must tell everybody to not even question and to admit that there was nothing wrong done. Well, you're asking too much of the public. The public is not puppets. If they have legitimate concerns, they should have those legitimate concerns. If there was some that are out in left field, that are just conspiratorial things, okay, we understand there's some. And like in me speaking to you today, what I just shared in the beginning is a real thing that my friend had told me. There's like about 9 people, John, that have been scoping out, and it's like a SWAT team of military. It would like a local task force of waiting for something. And they had to be deputized. There had to be some coordination with the DA, local officials, cops, if you're going to do like a stakeout. But why would you do it for 9 months, 10 months? This group of that's going to make the raid, that's whether local cop SWAT team or some type of a, entity, of a legal entity, has 9 guys waiting for now. Maybe they've been out there for 10 months or a year. Because I remember my friend telling me, and to my friends who have been raided in their lives, meaning in their past lives, they've had officers raid their homes or whatever, and many went to jail. They can't figure out why they'd be there waiting for somebody for 10 months. Do you understand now? They're just waiting for a certain person to show up. And then they say, oh, here's a drug. Oh, we accidentally shot somebody. Do you understand? Now, that's not real conspiratorial, because it's strange that they've been there for 10 months scoping out a camp, which happens to be one of the friends that has regular phone contact with me, which the authorities know because I told you about my phone just now. Okay, so now you're seeing a little more. You say, oh, so they might try. Of course they might try to kill you. They did, this is called, in Mexico, these things happen a lot. They kill prominent bloggers. That's why there's some concern about my recent speaking about Mr. Medina. He was like an activist. Homer from El Defensor and Eric Tinches. So people that are active bloggers, and in Mexico, they kill these people. There are active bloggers that expose corruption in Mexico, and these people are just shot on the street, with the corrupt gang, the drug cartels, and all the stuff that goes on in Mexico. So I figured, let me do this. I don't know, we'll call it the hit or whatever. So I just felt for the benefit. I didn't just make this just for me to let you know. I'm aware of this for years, okay? But my friend, it came up again when I seen him recently. And he said, they just been there scoping us out now for 9, 10 months, a year. And then my other friend who was questioning it showed up. And I know them both. They're both good friends. He said, oh, really? Where are they at? Then he went and looked. He said, they're there. What are they there for? So to let you all know, I think they're there for me. And my friends would believe this. Okay, they kind of have seen some of the stuff going on. So that was just to let you all know, my 2 friends. I think they were there waiting for me to show up to visit you, brother. And then they were going to do a so-called raid. And, if people got killed in the raid, okay? So, and my one friend that watches these, I won't give his name, but he knows I'm speaking to him. And so it'll click. As soon as he sees this, he's going to say, oh, I see now. So it's sad that that's the way life is. My kids get upset sometimes because they're like, well, if you get killed, then they're going to, you don't want your family to be killed, and so I understand people get upset. So they've seen some of this, All right, so we'll call this, I don't know, the assassination. Hard to do spell on assassination, what S goes where, the hit or whatever. It's also a little update I haven't spoken about the way our country's been embroiled. And so it's the first time I really spoke on that. And I simply would say it's sad that even people are afraid to discuss openly questions they might have about an election, or questions, because the way social media is. One of my sites that I liked a lot has been shut down, for those who are familiar. Not just me, but the whole network of Parler was shut down. And everybody that sees all my sites, I'm on very liberal sites and very conservative sites. Gab, Parler, Ello, Minds, some Reddit. But I just post what I post, which is really Christian teaching, sometimes social justice. But they banned Parler. Hopefully it's going to be up next week. And so I'm utilizing these for outreach. And it's sad that we're in an environment where there were doctors that had legitimate questionings about how we were dealing with the COVID crisis. Now, these were doctors, and if you look at some of their statements, some of them are being proven correct, but they were not fitting with the narrative. So this group of doctors who had legitimate contrary ways that are we approaching these things correctly, what we've been doing in our society, and the economic impact, and how much benefit is it to do the way we've been doing, the mask and clothes. And then they get banned from YouTube, they get banned from Facebook, they get banned from Twitter. Well, what a disgrace. What kind of platform of free speech I understand these are private companies, but me to even just discuss something as simple as this, just because I might have mentioned in a rational way that there are legitimate concerns about you will get banned. So it's a risk for me to even try to talk honestly in a balanced way, because, and it's a shame, because when Reddit shadow banned me for a couple of years, I was dealing with social justice issues. Black people that I felt that were killed by police actually, and I felt those cases locally needed to be spoken about, which is supposedly what these more liberal sites believe. But during that whole time they shadow banned me, they were preventing true, if you will, social justice posts going up. Things that they supposedly agreed with. But they might have heard me talk about Trump or Clinton once, and then they just shadow banned me for years. Not realizing some of the stuff we're doing, they would be on that side of it. We need to slow down on all of this banning and the media saying not only if you felt like you got robbed of $10 and you got robbed of $10, and now we will not be satisfied until you admit to us that you were not robbed of the 10. That's how they're treating the election. A large population has legitimate concerns about the legitimate irregularities that took place. And I can't go into all of those irregularities. And if there were enough but geez, you can't even discuss it. All right. So I felt this would be a benefit, because that little incident is possibly just explained. All right. Bless you guys. I pray blessing everybody that sees these videos, that the word of the Lord would endure, that the gospel would go out to every nation. In Jesus' name, amen.